Hello and a warm welcome again. At the risk of boring everyone, another little video. This video is really just directed at one person. That's YouTuber Mr22Brian22. Now, he has made a little video where he attempts to demonstrate how my observation might be possible on a flat Earth. And he posted in my comment section and very respectfully, and we've had a little exchange on the comment section of his video, just trying to establish exactly how he did his little test and what might be the reason for him getting the result that he got. So just to remind everybody or anyone who's not aware, the point of my observation is that my camera was at an elevation above sea level of 210 meters. This bridge tower here is also at 210 meters. And that means that if the Earth is flat, then the direct line of sight between the camera and the top of this bridge tower is parallel to that flat surface of the Earth. And because of that, anything in the distance which is below the top of the tower must be 210 meters or less above the surface, and anything that is above the top of the tower must be 210 meters high or more above the surface. And the problem with that is that the hills in the distance, this hill, for example, between the North Tower and the Central Tower of the bridge, Cairnach Hill. Cairnach Hill is 413 meters above sea level at its peak and lies below the top of the tower. The hills directly behind here are around 350, 370 meters above sea level and clearly well below the tower. And there are other hills at 500 meters that line up with the top of this tower. So that's impossible if the Earth is flat. And so this one picture proves the Earth cannot be flat. Now, let me get on to what Brian, as I shall call him, has actually done. Let's have a little look at his video, which I've managed to not have lined up. Here we go. Okay, so let's set this to full screen. What he's done here is on a kitchen worktop, he has placed two wooden blocks, one on top of the other, here at the far end of the, let's pause this because it's still running, at the far end of the worktop. And he's placed a single block here nearer to the camera. There's quite a long distance between these two blocks and a short distance between the camera and the block here. And I can show you that, I think, by playing a little piece of his video, I think from somewhere around about here. So there we see the two blocks. At the end of the worktop, he's placed something white behind them so you can see quite clearly. And then at the other end, we have the single wooden block. And in an effort to get his camera height to exactly the same height as this, he was resting it on this piece of cardboard. And he says that he's measured exactly the height, and the camera lens height was exactly the same height as this block. Now, I think this is where he has made a slight mistake. It's not deliberate. He seems a perfectly genuine chap. There are two things here. Firstly, I don't think he can be 100% accurate with the height of his camera. And the second thing is the accuracy of that camera height is absolutely crucial when the block is so close to the camera. Let me show you why that's the case. So we pop back into my little PowerPoint here. I've done 3 diagrams for you. On the top, we have a brown square to represent a wooden block, and in the distance, another brown rectangle, this time at twice the height of the square here. I've drawn a blue circle to represent the camera lens, and everything's on a flat surface in grey. And a straight line from the centre of the camera lens to the block in the distance meets that block exactly halfway up. And this is what you should be seeing if your worktop is level and your camera height is correct for the block at the front. Now, how accurate do you have to be with your camera height? Well, the middle diagram shows the camera lens dropped just 1 millimeter in the diagram. And you can see that now from the center of the camera lens past the block, the line of sight is to a position well above this double block at the far end. So a 1 millimeter difference here results in a very large difference here. And the reason for that is the proximity of the camera to this reference block here. The bottom diagram is exactly the same as the middle one. It is not the same as the top one. It's exactly the same as the middle one, except that I've moved the block to roughly halfway between the camera and the block at the end. And now our line of sight from the camera lens past the top of this block to the block in the distance comes to just above halfway up the block. So I think, Brian, if you were to repeat your demonstration and maybe place the block close to the double block at this end, in the middle, and then again close to the camera, taking equally great care to get the camera height exactly correct, you would find that with the block at the far end, you could see most of the double block in the background. With the block in the middle, you would still see most of it. But with the block close to the camera, you get the result that you got, which is that this shorter block here obscures the camera's view of the taller block in the distance. Now, going back to my observation, the distances involved are important. The bridge tower is 46.5 kilometers from the camera. And the Kennock Hill here is 89.1 kilometers from the camera. So the bridge tower is just a fraction over halfway between the camera and Kennock Hill. There are other hills which are further in the distance, but none that are closer. And the reference point, the bridge tower, is always 46.5 kilometers from the camera. So any small error in my camera height, if I had been at, say, 208 meters instead of 210, or at 212 or 215 meters instead of 210, it would make a relatively small difference to the observation. And I can confirm that that's the case, because I have an observation made from 221 meters at the very top of Traprain law, and it's essentially indistinguishable from this observation. Now, I haven't done a very detailed analysis and a pixel count, but the important point is the top of Kennock Hill is still from 221 meters below the top of the tower. So a relatively small difference in observer height at the camera end, because the reference point is a long way away, makes a relatively small difference to the observation itself. I'm not saying no difference at all, just a small difference. It would have been ideal for me had the bridge tower been closer to Kennock Hill, because then any error would be even more reduced. But halfway between, it's pretty good. So hopefully Brian will see this, and maybe he'll have a go at repeating his little demonstration and post a video about that. I may have time at some point to have a go at doing my own little demonstration just to illustrate the points that I've made here. But I don't make any promises because I'm quite busy over the next few days. And I'm expecting that I might have to respond to a number of other people about this particular observation or group of observations that I've made. So anyway, thanks for watching, and thank you, Brian, for engaging with this in a polite and a seemingly open and honest fashion. Let's hope that continues.